Hi, Andy here, and welcome to the very first episode of Inside the Cutting Room. On today's sort of video tutorial sort of guide thing, I'm going to show you how to make some opening titles.
Inside the cutting room.
So let's start by grabbing the media, and we'll click on Import Media, Macintosh hard drive, and we will have a scroll down here. We will go into Flight Titles, which is on the desktop, and in here we've got a whole bunch of clips that someone has given me. So I'll just select this by pressing Shift as well on the keyboard, and then I want that one as well, so I'll be pressing Apple, and all of that, if I click on Import Selected, will make that pop up. A new event, and the event name is going to be Titles. I am going to create optimized media. I am going to create proxy media as well, which basically just plays better. I'm going to leave all these unchecked. I'm going to uncheck those and uncheck that one as well. Those are the audio section. That's the video section. The audio section, basically, I know for this project it's going to be music only. So I'm going to click Import, and it'll drag those in, and thumbnails will pop up. Also, what I want to do at this point is create a new project. So this is new for this version of FCP, and it allows a lot more organization. So I'm going to call this Titles Flight Channel. What that does is it creates a sequence that you're going to drop your clips onto, and it creates a little drop down thing that has at the moment a blank sequence in it. Now the first thing I need to do is check that my sequence is the right format for my output. So I'm in the UK, so I want it 25 frames per second. So what I do is I select the sequence, and I go over to this panel here and click Modify Settings. Now I've got the options here of 1080i HD, the resolution is there, and the frame rate is 25. So that is now all set. So now I can just take my music, which is just there. Okay, so I have got my music on the timeline, first start. Now let's play this through and have a listen. Okay, so there we go. So I've got my music on the timeline. It's officially groovy. It's got a certain beat to it. Let me just drop this down a little bit just so you can hear what I'm saying. And dropping an audio clip level couldn't be simpler in FCP. You just hover over the little grey line and drag it down. Now I tend to go to sort of like -8, and then that shows me -12 on the meters, which is about right for broadcast. What we can do now is we can go through the track and put beat markers down. Okay, those beat markers were created by pressing the M key. The use to that is that FCP snaps to them if you've got snapping enabled. Now if you press the N key, N for nerd, then it will snap to those markers. Deleting a marker is very straightforward as well. All you do is you right click and you delete. What I like to do is take my favorite shot in the whole thing and just put it down on the timeline, and you can see it extends beyond my beat markers. And then basically what I do is I just start layering things up. I find a nice shot. To start playing a shot, you click on it so it's highlighted, and then press the space bar, and then you can use the J, K and L keys to rewind, fast forward or pause. The space bar is also play and stop. I'm going to shuttle through this clip, and I've got this lovely shadow shot of a helicopter. I'm going to pick my favorite bit. My favorite bit of this is where you sort of start to understand what's happening, and that is there. It's when you see what you're looking at is a shadow and it's whizzing away from you. I press the I key, that's an in, so I've marked an in, and then I've marked an out. So that gives me my little rectangle. Now I can get that onto the timeline in many different ways. I can physically pick it up and put it down, and you'll notice again it's snapping to the snappy markers. There you go, that's now in position. Or I can press the Q key, which does exactly the same thing. But the difference is it will put it wherever my playhead is. And this is my playhead, that line there. See? Cutting to that beat really just makes it snap and come alive. And if you choose the bit where the shot is most effective, then we're just building this up basically. And I've got a close-up of feet, which I'll just drop onto the timeline there, and you can see that's way too long, but we'll sort that out in a minute. And we've got this one, which is a time-lapse shot. A really important part of being an editor is watching. Might sound silly, but know your footage. That sounds ridiculous, but if you've watched it and the moment where you're watching it, you go, ooh, that most of the time is the bit that you want to be in your titles, the most grabbing bit. There are moments where a shot sort of comes alive, and if we're looking through here, it's going to be its sort of busiest moment. So again, we'll just not worrying about where we put it. We'll just drop it on the timeline by pressing the Q key. That shot and that shot to me is the same sort of subject. So to move something in proximity to it, all you do is you pick it up, drop it, and it magnetically snaps. What else we got? We've got a wing. Got some sped up wing action. Now I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm just going to pick it up and drop it on there. So I'm not being too precise at the moment. I'm just, oh, a snowy helicopter. That is cool. If you're watching a channel about flight, you might have your own airplane. So he's looking at the camera there. So we'll take it where he opens the door and it looks like he's getting in. And we'll just drop that on. Now you notice when I drop it on, it's going onto the top. It's going above what's on the timeline. I'm not overwriting anything. Everything is still there. Just layers of stuff. And just building it up. Building it up. So what we've got here, we've got an eagle. And we will make that shorter. What I'm doing there is trimming it. Now when I dropped it onto the timeline, it was that long. To go into trim mode, couldn't be simpler. You hover over the end of the clip and the trimming icon appears there, which means it allows you to make something longer or shorter, and then I can then drop that onto there, and you can see FCP automatically sees that you want those two clips together, so it just drops them on there. So I'll just randomly place it onto the timeline again, and then have another look at another shot. All I'm doing is watching this footage and pressing Q, marking it in, marking it out, pressing Q, dropping it onto the timeline, sort of building it up. We've used a bit of that, we've used a bit of that, we've used a bit of that. Okay, how I'm telling that we've used a bit of that clip is that it's got an orange marker in it, which represents the bit of the clip that is on your timeline. So you can see the music clip that it was the first thing that we put down in its entirety has got an orange line all the way through it. So we know we've used all of that. Now I've got a couple of little graphic elements that I'm gonna wait a little while to deploy, because I want to add those once I've got my sequence built up. So now if I just press play and we watch through what we've got, it's all going to be very random, but because most of the time I've been snapping to my markers on the timeline, you might be surprised at what this looks like. Admittedly, it's rough, but you can see moments that work in it. And for me, that is what editing is. It's building up that sort of sensation of what works. So let's make this work better by fiddling about a bit with it. So for me, flight is probably best illustrated by taking off. And let's move this one with the taking off airplane, and put that right at the top. Okay, so I've just picked that up by clicking on it, moving it. Couldn't be simpler. Now I can move it under there, but then if I play through, we're not going to see it, because non-linear editing is like looking through layers of glass. And when you've got different layers, if you've got something on that layer and you can't see through it, you'll only see that layer. So if you imagine it's layers of glass and you're looking down through them, then that sort of explains the sort of process of video layers. Okay, our first image is going to be the airplane, but at the moment I'm still seeing a wing. We don't want to see that. So what we do is we trim, which we covered earlier, but now this time it's saying you can trim it this way. So I drag it, and now we should see airplane taking off, wing, bird, helicopter, air traffic control, airport, speedy, and getting into airplane. All got a bit random there. So now it feels to me that those leg shot, although it's a great shot, is too long. So what we do is we use the trim tool and then drop that into there. And because FCP has what they call a magnetic timeline, it automatically, once you've hit that mark, it will concertina down and fall into its own place. So I'm currently in trim mode. So what I will do is I can either go into here and click the select mode, or hit the A key, which then enables me to select a clip and then drag it along and then put it wherever I want it to. Now I think that's probably the right place there. And now if I play this through, that's great, but we've got that little gap in this run of shots that shows us our aerial shot, which we're ignoring. Now if you've got layers of shots, if you scrub along the sequence, you can see it from what the sequence will look like if you're playing it. If you scrub specific clips, no matter where they are, whether they're underneath shots and they're hidden, because we're not seeing that in the moment, that shot, and that's a very good shot. We're not seeing that one because it's hidden by those. If you think of it again as those layers of glass, we cannot see that aeroplane take off because it is under the shot of the helicopter and under the shot of the air traffic control. So at the moment we are missing out on that shot, but we can still see it by scrubbing it independently and seeing what it is. So we know we want to use it. How can we see it? Well, that's pretty simple. You just drag it to the top of the layer. So again, we take our shots, we drag them around on the timeline. We can see that yellow line of joy there saying, oh, you're hitting a snapping point there. We just take that, we pile them up, knowing which shots we like the most. Now we've got this crazy sort of stack of shots here. But what that has enabled us to do is see that we've got the opportunity to see all our shots if we line them up correctly. Okay, and in doing that, just roughing it out like that, what I've seen is that that is probably a fantastic end shot for the end title. So what I'll do is I'll just drag that to the end. So looking at this now, this little man in his airplane isn't working for me there because it all gets a bit too hectic. So what I'm going to do is select those two shots by lassoing. Now that's just a click and a drag, drawing a rectangle around them, and then moving them somewhere where I think it might work. Now, funnily enough, it probably work at the top. So roughly, the shots are roughly, I think, getting to be in the right place. Roughly. They're not all cutting together in the right timing, but roughly. What I can hear is there is a big chang at the end. So what I want to happen is I want my final shot to come in on that chang. Not quite. So what we need to do is get that closer, and that last cut mark, it should be the Chang. So now comes the time to sort of tidy up, really. What's working, what's not working? Well, man with airplane, I don't really understand what he's doing in that shot, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put that one first. So we start with man. Then we've got this airplane shot which comes and goes incredibly quickly. So what I'm going to do is drag that along, and then drag that along so that snaps to that shot. So all I'm doing is I'm trimming these shots so they hit the beat. Again, there's another Chang there, another hit in the music, so I'm going to drop that back so that shot hits the beat. So for me, that helicopter shot sort of works, but those two don't cut together well because we're going sky to sky. So what could we put there that makes that better? Well, we could move the guy getting in his airplane, and we could put that there, and we could trim that out so we know it's going to cut on the beat. And we could look down here and see where our marker is, and we could drop that there. See, that drops into. So that's now two different shot types. So we have got a boring shot. That's quite boring as well. The bird's quite boring. And a little bit off topic looking at it. So what we do have is we've got some graphics. What we do, we just mark again the bit where we feel everything's right. I think that's good. So we've marked a 6-second chunk. We can see the duration of that clip by looking at this here, so that we know that's a 6-second clip. So what we want to do is we want to cue that onto the timeline and lay that over there and trim that so it's the same shot as our bird shot. And if I select that and I go into the video panel and then select compositing, now this allows you to overlay shots. So just selecting overlay has now got this effect. Also, I've got another shot as well that's got lots of different destinations, and so we select 6 seconds by again selecting the bit that we find most interesting, and I'm going to lay this over that shot there of those people rushing about. All I do is I cue it onto the timeline, I trim it to the same length as that. At the moment that's all you can see, but if I go back, if I select that clip and then go into the video, change compositing, and then go add, we can see that that has made that into a quite interesting composite. So if I was sitting in there with a client, I would allow him or her to watch that sequence and give me feedback. So what I'd first do, just to demonstrate what I was planning here, is I would drop a rough graphic title, drag that over there and drag it on the flight channel, and we'll play it through. So there we go, there's my first video. Not really a tutorial, just a sort of how I put a music sequence together quite quickly so I can get that first impression from the client. If you've seen anything in this video that you don't understand what the heck I was doing, I will gladly instantly do a specific video for you. So that's the first episode of
Inside the Cutting Room.
Thanks for watching.